Round 16, buy, hold, sell. We are back with a big video here. Biz, mate, good to have you on.
Yeah, Longy, good to be on. Average week for me last week. A lot of injuries, not just for me, but for a lot of people. Took a punt and getting Sean Johnson in early. Didn't go too well, but looking primed this week. Have 13 players, even with Garrick out. I know you've got about 30 players yourself. So how are you primed for this week?
Mate, I'm stacked. I was looking pretty dire a while back, but I've got 5 trades in the bank. I don't need to use any of them with a full roster. So I'm feeling pretty clean. Look, for today, though, we've got a really different video. So everyone's been asking for the best hooker option, the best center option, the best half option, all that sort of thing. Sean Johnson's going to be part of that as well. But basically, today we're going through position by position here instead of going buys, holds, sells, all that sort of thing, and just ranking these players, talking about the players we like, the players we don't, because most people are going to know what position they need this week. So that's the approach. How are you feeling coming into this week?
Yeah, I mean, last week was a bit of a slide, but I'm feeling good. I've been prioritizing trades that only fit my final team. So last week I brought in both Aitken and Sean Johnson. Both didn't have the best weeks, but they're both two of the top players in their position that'll be in my final 17 for the run home. So if I'm going to use my trades, they're the type of players I want to bring in at this stage. So feeling good about the next half of the season.
Man, I like it. You're taking the big swings. You're looking long term. You're looking for those big upside guys down the stretch. And it's probably a good segue into our sponsor for today as well, Swing City, where you can definitely take a swing. Oh yeah, you like the pun too?
I'm terrible at golf, so I'll let you handle this segment.
I'm trying to learn right now, and Swing City's been pretty good for it actually. So these guys are a new sponsor, driving range, one of the best in the business down in Bella Vista. So if you're in Sydney, especially in Sydney's west or northwest, that kind of thing, Swing City's an awesome spot. And we do have a video midway through this where we're going to go into that in a bit more depth. So shout out to Swing City, and Tommy Talau would go there as well if we invited him, but he just needs to respond to my DMs. I'll keep trying. So let's get into this first section here. I'm going to toss it at you straight away, Biz. There's a list of hookers here. A lot of people are looking at buying hookers this week. A lot of options here that are pretty decent. Where do your eyes jump to straight away?
Well, my hooker this week is good old Carl Lawton, so no one on this list. But I reckon, look, it's funny because halfback Carl Lawton, sorry. Dual position Carl Lawton. Goodbyes, Carl Lawton. Anyway, it's funny because we were discussing this offline before, and we both have very different views on Damien Cook, but I love Damien Cook. I think he's shown that he'll be 80 minutes again. And when he's playing 80 minutes, he's scoring close to 60 points. Whereas every single other hooker this year, like Reed, even Harry Grant and Robson, who are on Origin duties this week, they're 50 guys. So he's a real point of difference, Damien Cook. I actually think the two best hookers this year will be Damien Cook and Connor Watson when he eventually gets his dual position. But that's the name on this list that I'm eyeing. I know you're a Reed fan for your team.
Yeah, I got Reed a little way back. I think Reed's one of those top hookers. He's got a very reliable role at the Dogs. My concern with Cook, and it's just a concern, but every player has problems, is that he's obviously looking at maybe signing elsewhere. If he signs with St. George, if the Bunnies keep sliding down the table, if Mama Zealous is the future, then theoretically that 80 minutes is going to disappear pretty quickly, especially down the stretch. So as much as I love the buys for Damien Cook, I think he is that guy who can average 60 plus on this list. I still just reckon there's that big risk that his role disappears. Whereas Reed Money, you know what he's going to be. I think it's a little late at the moment with Reed. There's a couple of other guys here as well. So JMK and Abby Coruscant. I put them together just because they both play round 16 and round 19. They both got super favorable buys. So with those two, Abby Coruscant 572K, he's probably the pick of the value guys for me when you're looking at that mid-range section. JMK, I would say, it's a very strong buy schedule for the Dolphins, but I wouldn't pay 100K more for JMK than I would for Abby Coruscant at this stage.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree with that. I think there's actually some great mid-range options here. I think JMK, Alpi, and Wade Egan are all pretty interesting. Unfortunately for Egan, he's just not been playing 80 minutes through the midpoint of the season. Like at the start of the year, we had Egan on our buy list because he was playing 80 minutes and he was churning up 50-plus points each week. And then I think they're just trying to preserve him. So they've been playing him less than 80 minutes most weeks. So that makes Egan more difficult. But if he comes back and plays 80 minutes towards the back end of the year, post-Origin, I think he's right up in the keeper category. I agree with your analysis on JMK Uppy. I think Uppy is actually a good shout. Like, he's priced very low, and he traditionally has been a 50-plus scorer. And Tiger should be better in the run home. I mean, you know, Galvin, he only missed a week, but like Bateman will come back, and Papali'i will come back. They're blooding a lot. Yeah, Clemmer. They've got some young talent who should be, 12. This list goes on and on. Seyfarth coming off the bench, you know. No, so I think they'll be better towards the back end of the season than they were at the start of the season. Just with a lot of the new faces getting more experience, you know, like your Fainus and things like that as well. So Uppy could be a sneaky shout. The only thing is the value option here is Jake Simpkin, and he's a cash cow that if I didn't have 13 players, I'd be pretty keen on him. He played 80 minutes last week, I believe, straight rush back in. And the fact that they went out and signed him pretty much goes to show that there's something wrong with Lachlan Croker. They're being kind of a bit cagey about it, which is kind of why I got Carl Lorden in like a month ago. But the fact that they've gone and got Simpkin means that there's probably some longer-term issues for Croker here. And Simpkin could be, he plays 16, 19. He's 296K, and we've seen that he can score a lot of points when he plays 80 minutes. So he's a potential cash-out option for me, you know, if not this week, round 18.
Yeah, Simpkin's a great shout. He's a guy who can play 80 minutes as well. He's done that for the Tigers before. He racks up tons of tackles, so I think he's a 50 average type of guy. The one thing with him is if you don't need the hooker this week, he has a bye next week. So you're sort of buying a guy for 2 weeks of nothing. He'll make some cash, but the break-even isn't disastrously low. So I would almost rather wait until round 18 and see what the news on Croker is at that stage. If Croker's still out indefinitely at that stage, I'm probably going to buy him at that point and pay, you know, 340K or whatever it is, because at that price, he's still good value. One thing I'll throw in here for Wade Egan as well is he's got the Titans this week. No Mo Fodawaker, no Jamin Jolliffe, no Tino Farmasuliali, no Cleese Haas. You know, they're missing quite a few guys for the middle. I think that they're going to be very vulnerable. And I think guys like Egan, guys like Fanua Blake are going to tear up. My shout here too, as much as I'm not recommending Egan as a buy option, I think he probably will be the top scorer on this list for this week, just with that matchup.
Yeah, I don't mind that. And I hope he gets some good ball out to Sean Johnson because I need him to score some points. But yeah, I think there's some great hookers on this list. The thing with, I would say hooker is probably the most diverse option this year is because there's no runaway keeper in this category, right? Like Harry Grant has traditionally been the guy with Cook, and they've averaged 60 plus. This year, it's not the case. So there's a chance that, you know, Grant, Robson, Cook, Marnie, Uppy, JMK, they're all in the conversation as like the top hooker.
Reed.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, Reed, the thing with Reed is he's just he's playing a lot better this year, and the Bulldogs are getting better and better every week. So
Reed makes more tackles than any of these guys.
Yeah, for sure. But he also misses a ton. He misses
but he makes more. He made that little tackle count. Robson used to do it, that 50-plus tackle count, and the ability to produce try assists. So he's had like 7 try assists in the last 4 games or something like that. Like, it's something silly.
Yeah.
He's just like, but I get you. Simpkin even could be a keeper if he keeps that spot.
The thing with Simpkin is I'm just not sure he plays 80 minutes with you know, Gordon and Gordon Tong and Carl Lorden coming off the bench, even if he gets a starting role. So Simpkin, I think, is a good catch out, but I wouldn't say he's it'll be a pretty long shot to think he'll be a keeper. But if he plays 80 minutes, maybe,
Yeah. Chankon Tong should steal some minutes, 100%. Let's go into middles next. And this is another position that's quite diverse, a lot of options. We're going to get into some dire positions as well as we go through this. But it's just working our way down your fantasy list and down the quality. But for this grouping, there's a few guys we can talk about here. My view on this list is that it's sort of between Aden Fanua-Blake and Stefano Utoikamanu that most people are looking at. My assumption is most people have Plath already if they're going to have him. So AFB or Utoikamanu is the question I'm getting quite a bit. It's about a 100K price difference. For me, I look at this and I go, Utoikamanu is set up to score brilliantly over the next month of footy. They've just got so many outs, like you were talking about with Coruscant before. He has to play big minutes, have a big role. He'll produce big points as long as he can stay fit. But AFB is the guy where you can plug him in for the rest of the year. And he's at a price point that's pretty palatable as well. I also look at AFB, and the same things I was saying about Wade Egan make me think that AFB could be one of the top scorers this week. So both viable captain options for this round, and both options that I'd be pretty happy buying if I needed a middle.
Yeah, I don't disagree with both of those. I think you're 100% right. Like, Stefano's just going to be asked to shoulder a massive load while all these forwards are out. Because it's not like, not only are the Tigers missing backs, they're also missing the majority of the starting forward pack. So Stefano is going to need to carry here. I think that's a great buy for 100K less. The only things I have going against him is that I think AFB will be a better scorer in the long run. So even though Stefano might average 5 or 6 more in the next few weeks, I think AFB will catch him over the length of the season. And you're getting them, like either of them, if you bring them in, they're probably going to be in your final squad, right? So long term, I think I like AFB more. The knocks on both is AFB. You kind of talked about it before. He's leaving the club, a bit of off-field spice around him. If Warriors kind of fall out of contention, will they reduce the minutes? Because look they've actually changed a lot. Tohu's playing off the bench right now. Capewell's playing off the bench. AFB was playing like 60, 65 minutes to the start of the year, but like lately it's more like I think he played 50, 55 minutes last week. But on the flip side, with Stefano as well, that once they get troops back, his role might fall. Like he started the season really hot and then he kind of fell off a bit. Now he's coming back hot again. Will he fall off again? And also, Stefano's always just a chance of making the Origin side. Like it's not like the Blues forward pack are setting it on fire. So if they are shaky this week, or there's some injuries, Stefano could be in there for game 3. So there's also that chance. But both good options. I've got AFB personally, but I also I think for a quick burst, Stefano could be a real difference maker over the next few weeks.
Yeah, because he plays 19. That's the thing. So they both play 16. Stefano plays 19. Origin could mess it up. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that Toka Manu is not a keeper for the long term. He just straight up isn't. He has to play at his top level for a long time to be a keeper, and it's just not likely to happen. So, yeah. At the same time, though, the price point is nice. It's up to you, basically. If you need the player for round 19, grab a Toka Manu. Just know that it's going to cost you an extra trade, but theoretically, the prices will probably equalize over the next month. So if you think the 100K and the points are worth the extra trade, I personally think they probably are, then make that move. Kaloa Matangi, do we not have any interest there?
I think he goes back to his edge role, right? Murray's back. Like, he's not going to play. Like, Murray didn't play that many minutes last week, but I think he's going to go back to his 60 to 70-minute role. Kaloa Matangi will probably go back to the edge. No, I think he was really interesting, and like we talked about him a couple of weeks ago when he was playing that middle rotation, and he's actually done pretty well. But just back on the edge, I think it's more of the high 40s. And at this stage of the season, like I know he's got excellent buys, but he's also technically a threat of Origin if things don't go well for New South Wales. And one trade in at 707K, he's probably, you don't want him in your final team. You might have to trade him out. I'll pass on that one.
I mean, he's pretty pricey as well. Like, we're talking about him. He's a much worse version of a Toka Manu, basically, right? In that he's got a window of performance. He's 30K more expensive. He doesn't play round 17, whereas the Toka Manu does. He has the dual position, but overall, he's just sort of in an awkward in-between phase. When we talked about him first, he was 100K cheaper. That was the time to do it. Plath, straight up, he's a good option. If you don't have him already, the half and middle eligibility is really nice. Especially since in round 19, you're not going to want to be buying a half, right? Because you're going to be so close to getting Cleary back, and you'll probably have Nico already at that point as well, actually. So, I like Plath's flexibility. He just gives you a lot of movement in your roster. And then Brown and Sipley are there. So Brown is 342K, Sipley is 379K. So I've just put 350K in there. But for these guys, this is a pod that was raised on the live that I hadn't really thought about too deeply. But Sipley is a guy who's averaged 50 plus for months of footy in the past. Brown is also a guy who's averaged 50 plus through periods. Are the injury tolls at Manly, are the problems that Manly have right now enough to warrant having a look at these guys as guys who are going to get big minutes, at least in round 16 and 19, and maybe in the surrounding rounds as well?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great thought. And I think, like you said, Sipley is a guy who, when he gets the time, he's really good. And we've seen Nathan Brown. Nathan Brown, back when he was playing for Para, he was one of the best middles in the game. He was averaging 55 plus across the seasons, right? Like, I think he's had it close to a 60 average season. If not 60, it would be like high 50s, like 57, 58. the thing is, Brown's role has changed a bit. Like he's actually getting decent minutes this year. Like I was actually looking at Brown last week as a potential cash out, and he was getting 50+ minutes in a couple of games, but still only scoring in the mid-20s. So I just think his role's different, and his work rate just isn't the same. He's more of an impact player right now. I know he's 55 minutes isn't really an impact player. It's like a full-time prop or lock, but he kind of runs off the back fence, and he's less of the guy who makes a lot of tackles and things like that. But this is one where, similar to Simpkin, that I don't need them this week. They don't play next week. I'm going to sit there in 18 and potentially 19 thinking, I need cash outs. Who could potentially get me a good score in round 19 and then just sit as a 20, 25 point backup for the rest of the season? Because you're 100% right. Like, when you're at round 18, 19, you got to start getting funds for Cleary, Hines, if you lost him, all these sorts of guys. So you're going to need cash outs, and you're not going to want red dots to end the year because you're probably going to run out of trades. And these are guys that you can almost cash out. Like, yeah, they're not base price, but they're 300 odd K. Hopefully they're not 450 odd by the time you get them. And then worst case, you plug them in for a couple of weeks at the end of the season if you need. So I'll definitely evaluate, because I've kind of, for round 19 buy planning, I'm pretty much waiting till round 19 and seeing what bargain-based price cash cows I can kind of pick up.
Yep.
These two might fit the bill. So, it is an interesting one you bring up.
They're very different too to you look at the base price guys. It's like Fea Tape, or there's a few guys that have been named this week for the first time or the second time. These guys are very different to that. So they're guys who you can pretty much trust will have a pretty decent role in the team, at least through this period where Jake Trbojevic, Ola Kawatu are both out. So yeah, they're very different, right? And you could see for Sipley, maybe more likely then, that 50+ score coming through this week. It's a valuable thing. It's something we look at where, if Brisbane had better buys, you look at guys like Kobe Hetherington in previous years, Palacia at times, like Xavier Wilson, these types of players. We're seeing that situation at Manly right now. It's tough though, because our rosters are so shallow in fantasy. If we had a 25-man squad, I would be jumping all over these types of players, because you can afford to make some mistakes. But with such a small roster, it's pretty hard to do. So yeah, they're going to have to be big hitters for you to make sense. Now, speaking of big hitters, a word from Swing City.
What's going on, guys? Bergs and Longy here from The Casual Athlete, and today we're coming to you from our brand new sponsor.
That's right, we've got Swing City in Bella Vista on board, and I got to say, after 2 hours on the range, I love this place. Brand new facilities, tons of games, heaps of food and drinks, and they've got a State of Origin offer on too. You going to be here next Wednesday, mate?
100%. Let's get into it.
So will I. Let's go.
Swing City is the Hills District's newest destination for fun and excitement. Have a hit down on the awesome golf range that provides simulations to really test out those golfing skills. If golf really isn't your speed, then head over to the amusement shed for some awesome arcade games. Or hit the outdoor mini golf course to really hone in that short game. Take a seat and enjoy some food and drink in the heated outdoor courtyard where you can watch anything you want on the outdoor screens. Book a group bay now for your next friends, family or corporate event. And with July school holidays on the horizon, Swing City is surely the place to be.
All right, edge forwards now. Let's jump into these guys. So some big options here. Look, when I look at Kaloa Matangi at 707K, I think of a guy like Eli Katoa, who's 740K. And as much as Eli Katoa isn't super convincing in his base stats or anything like that, he's probably 5 to 10 points better than Kaloa Matangi this year. Maybe not down the stretch, but I think he's still quite a bit better. And at the same price point, he's more attractive. So let's look at this list here, and let's assume that everyone has Dave Fifita. In fact, we should probably cover that. I'll throw it to you. In 30 words or less, why should someone have Dave Fifita at this point?
Best buy schedule out of the keeper forwards, 60+ average, best to this position, must buy, must have. Done.
Bang, done. Captain this week?
Yeah, I think so.
Probably, unless you go Sean Johnson.
Yeah, that one's a bit brave. I think Fifita's a great option this week. I think he should be stable. I mean, if you've got a guy like Terrell May still hanging around, he's a great pick. But I think Fifita's probably the safest option this week for sure.
Yeah, May's a stud. AFB is around as well. You can look at Jerome Hughes, Tedesco against the Dogs. Yeah, there's a few guys around. All right, so let's jump in then, because you and Aitken, we talked about him ad nauseum as well. Look, I don't think we need to say too much. If you have questions about Aitken, drop them in the comments, and everyone will answer them because we've said this so much, but he's the best center in fantasy. I popped him into the edge forward section because there's a lot of centers to talk about, a lot of edges to talk about. I think most people have quite a few centers. So I think a lot of Aitken owners are going to be playing him in the edge back row spot, and they were playing him in that spot in round 13 as well. So for me, I've got him in this spot. Look, 794K, it is overs for him, but he's the best center in fantasy, and he has a great buy schedule. Anything else to add on that?
No, I think if you're going to get Aitken for the run home, now's the time to do it, right? Like, he's going to play 2 of the major buy rounds. So you're getting a ton of value of having the best center in the game for the 2 major buy rounds. So, like, yeah, he's overs now, but he's going to be the number 1 player in that position at the end of the year. So maybe 100K overs, but I bought him in last week for the similar logic. So if you want him in your final team, and you need a center or edge now, like, do it this week.
Yeah, lock him in. Eli Katoa, he's an interesting one. So he's been scoring tries like crazy. I think it's like 4 tries in his last 5 games or 6 games, something like that. Last week, he had a try and a try assist in a 50-point game, which was the first time I was genuinely worried about this trend. So as a Eli Katoa from round 1 owner, I've enjoyed the ride, but I'm starting to sort of see those signs that maybe it's wearing on him a bit. Maybe the fact that the Storm don't have Munster and Pappenhausen and Grant's not playing particularly well, maybe that's starting to reduce the effectiveness of Eli Katoa and probably Sean Bloor as well. It definitely is impacting Bloor, by the way, because he's on that Munster side. But for Katoa, I wouldn't necessarily fall over myself buying Katoa if I was not an owner. I think 740K is, just with how things are going for the Storm right now, it's probably a little bit overs. If Pappenhausen comes back good this week and Munster comes back good in a few weeks' time, he becomes worth that again. But for right now, I think you'll be a bit disappointed over the next sort of 3 weeks of footy. So I'm kind of steering away from recommending Katoa. Do you agree with that?
I like Katoa, and like, kudos to you for having him from the start of the season, right? I agree that I probably wouldn't be buying him in because he's that player where you're going to be stuck with him till the end of the year. So I guess, what's his average now? He's averaging 55. So it's not the end of the world. Like, I think that probably might come down to 53 or so. But Storm are also a really hot team this year, and they're not even at full strength, right? So like, they've been playing most of the year without App or Munster or these guys. Hughes was out for a bit. So, I think Katoa could be a bad shot. I see, like, the 3 best edges, the tier 1s, the Dave Fafita is, like, by far and away the best one. Probably Hopgood after that, and Angus Crichton, right? Hopgood, we don't know. Like, he's indefinitely out. So they're probably the tier 1s. And then it's probably Eli Katoa just after that. So he's not the worst to have, but also keep in mind that you only need 2 edges. You don't need 3. So you probably only want 2 plus 1 or 2 on the bench max. So you definitely want to have Fafita. You probably want to get like Angus or Hopgood, at least one of them. So if Katoa is your 3rd edge, probably makes sense. If you've already got these players and Katoa will be like your 4th edge, I'd probably skip.
Yep, agree. And I think when we look at the middles as well, I think the middles are so much more attractive than Eli Katoa. So he's sitting sort of between that AFB and that Otoka Manu price. For me, I'd rather just, if I didn't have him, move Samuel Afino to the edge, move Ewan Aitken to the edge, get one of these other guys, get one of the middles that we talked about, because Eli Katoa also is out for round 19 as well. So I could be telling the truth. I could be just arguing this to keep him as a pod. You have to determine what the truth is, because there is a Storm jersey behind me just there as well. So keep an eye on that. All right, Kelman Tuolangi, 443K. He's out for 6 weeks. I just included him here to say he is a hard sell. Get rid of him. Don't even think about it. He's gone. And then Manamua for the Tigers, I really couldn't find another option as far as edges. So look, 320K. I'm not inspired by the scoring. It looks like about 30 points, regardless of whether he plays 30 minutes or 60 minutes. For me, this is a pretty firm skip. But do you have anything different on this?
Nah, firm skip. I got my boy Salmon still hanging in there last week with him. Give me a good farewell. Give me a big farewell score, please, Jamin. A big 40 plus to send you out. But no, I agree. The one thing I will say, actually, coming back to Kelman Tuolangi, is I wonder if it's Lane or Madison that takes that spot. Because if it's Madison in the 2nd row, he could be a keeper for next week at a discount price. So keep an eye on that. He, obviously we'll have buyouts on next week, but I'd love it if Madison picks up that spot over Lane. So let's see how it goes.
Man, that'd be crazy. That'd be crazy because he's the guy who can average 50 plus as well. And he's like concussions are concussions, right? But he's fit right now. He's young enough right now. Yeah.
And like he's a hot fantasy prospect. Like he's got the dual position. He's in the mid 500k. He's shown that playing big minutes at edge. He's a 55 guy. Like he'll be someone I'm definitely keeping an eye out for round 19.
Man, you're talking me into this. Right, I might do it. I've got eyes on that now. That's a super hot one. And then for halves, all right. So halves, I reckon my theory on this right now is I think a lot of us have Galvin, a lot of us have Plath, a lot of us have KO Weeks, these sorts of guys. A lot of us have either Strange or Whiten. I think we have enough halves right now that we don't need to be buying too many more halves. These are two options that are borderline, if not certain keepers that you can get. I don't think that anyone below this is worth wasting time on. So your Kearys, your Sam Walkers, even your Matt Burtons, these types of players, like, and everything below that, Caesar, I just don't think it's worth playing around with. Isaiah Katoa, So Jerome Hughes, Sean Johnson is the big question here. The Jerome Hughes or Sean Johnson is the question I'm being asked. I reckon I know where you're going to lean here, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Who would you take this week out of these two?
This week?
Yep.
Sean Johnson.
A coach who owns neither.
Yeah, Sean Johnson.
Why is that?
I think that Sean Johnson, like he was easy in last week. Like last week versus a top-notch Melbourne team, it was always a long shot for him to score well. When I think Sean Johnson, I think he's the third best half, right? And you're going to have Cleary, and you're going to have Hines. And the guy straight after that is probably Sean Johnson, right? Like before his injury, he was kind of averaging 61 when playing 80 minutes. He was a mid-60s guy last week. Warriors, once they're getting troops back, they should be good for the run home. There's no origin chance. I paid $832K for him. He's now $750K a week later. Whatever. Like I actually have quite a bit of bank in the team I'm working with at the moment. So I think, and then Sean Johnson should be a bona fide 60-plus keeper to the end of the year. Hughes, once Munster's back, which he will be, his scoring will drop. Now, I don't know how much it'll drop because he was scoring pretty well with Munster this year. But I'm just like, if I'm getting a keeper, it's Sean Johnson. Like Sean Johnson's definitely in the top 17 for the run home. He's in your top, like he's probably in the top 10 fantasy players, right? Like there's not many people who average 60 plus, so it's Sean Johnson. So if I had to pick one this week, it is Johnson. Because you're going to, whichever one you bring in, you're keeping till the end as well. Hughes is a good shout as well, but I just think he's going to fall off a bit. So that's the logic I have for Johnson.
Yeah, I'm completely with you there. So I've been chirping about Jerome Hughes over the last few weeks. What's his price change actually recently? So he's gone. Let's check him out. So yeah, he went all right, plus 6K. Actually, it wasn't crazy the last couple of weeks. Look, I've been chirping about Jerome Hughes. Excited about that period without Munster, because without Munster, he's a 61 average. With Munster, probably like a 50 average. If I was looking at these guys now, I've enjoyed 2 big scores from Jerome Hughes. So I'm enjoying having him. But if I was looking at these two now, I'm probably with you. Sean Johnson's break-even is not great, but I'm a big fan of ignoring the break-even a little bit. Just sort of going, look, who gives a shit about the break-even? If he's 750K right now, is he going to be value for that price over the remainder of the season? Now, 100-point break-even, whatever it is, he could theoretically crush that against the Titans anyway. It's the type of matchup where they're missing some troops, all that sort of thing. Sean Johnson could tear them apart. They lost to the Tigers last week. He could be red hot in this game and just immediately become that buy next week. You got to get ahead of these things. And if you can get Sean Johnson right now, and if you consider, up to you, but if you consider captaining him as well, then you can really double that.
I mean, I wouldn't captain Johnson, but exactly right. Like break-evens have the time and place, right? Like break-evens are definitely one of the most important things in fantasy to consider. But this is a guy that once he's in your team, he's not leaving again unless he's injured, right? Yep. So I'll pay extra for him to get him for this round, hoping that he gets 60. Now, he could fail, right? He could score 30 again, drops another 50 to 100K, and I look stupid. But the way I describe it is just like you said, he's still lower than, like at 832 last week, he was still cheaper than what he started the season as. So I'm still getting him at a discount. Now, it didn't pay off. If he scored 55, 60 last week, I'd be cheering. He still would have dropped a ton of cash, but it is what it is. I think the thing with Jerome Hughes, I think without Munster, he's the same as Sean Johnson. And with Munster, he's a tier below Sean Johnson. So at this, Sean Johnson's 8K cheaper. And if you need a half this week, I'm getting him in because I think he's the best half other than Hines and Cleary this year.
Yep. I'm with you there. Also, I will say when I say captain him, personally, my view is Fafita is that captain this week. The Warriors are named Dylan Walker, and who else is it on edge?
It's an odd team, but
they're vulnerable.
The team list.
Yeah, I had a look. They're super vulnerable on the edges.
Dylan Walker and Niokore. Niokore's never been the best defender, so
he puts on shots. And
he's good. He's good attacker. He's good to have next to Sean Johnson. Like no one's running at Sean Johnson, and Niokore's there to take your head out. So.
Yeah, 100%. But I still do reckon like he could miss a few tackles, even if it's him. Feet will come up. Look, Tamari Martin, Sean Johnson, they're both vulnerable defensive players against a guy like Fafita. Everyone is. So I reckon Fafita is just such a slam dunk captain option this week that you sort of have to do it without really thinking about it. I don't think anything else really compares to Fafita right now. I'll just throw in a mention here too. So Nico Hines is not in the Origin side. So he shaped up as a buy for next week. So if you already have Jerome Hughes and you're thinking, oh, I'm going to upgrade to Sean Johnson, or if you have Sean Johnson, you're thinking, I'm going to upgrade to Jerome Hughes, whatever it is, don't do that. Just try and survive with Galvin or with Jack Whiten or with Strange or whoever you've got there and buy Nico Hines next week because he's come down in price quite a bit. He's at like 900K. Get him next week. He plays around 19 major buy round. Just make sure Moses gets through Origin unscathed and make sure it looks like that Luai and Moses won't be dropped, basically. I also want to mention, too, that we're going to need to go and buy Nathan Cleary in round 20 as well. He's like 870K or something stupid like that. So, again, not an absurd price, but just when you're looking at these halves, you don't want to have like 8 halves on your final team. So don't stack up too many halves. Play with as few as you can, basically. Get Nico next week and get Nathan Cleary in like a month's time.
Yeah, the only thing I will say with like you definitely want Cleary and Hines as your starting halves. And you want a third good half as well. So Sean Johnson, Moses, Hughes, like they're all good candidates for the third half. When you've got Cleary, though, you probably want a fourth half. I'm not saying have a fourth expensive half. Like you just have like a Jack Whiten type of guy who's like a 20th man who can fit a couple of roles, right? Because Cleary and they'll always get rested in the last round, right? So just remember that. So you do need some cover, and that's why if there's like even like someone like Brendan Hands who can play in the half spot, if you carry him till the end, like he can slot in the half. So it's good to have those dual position guys in your 18 to 21. So just that's ages away, but I thought I'd bring it up now.
No, good shout. Good shout. I think Galvin could be a keeper as well. To be honest, like next to Caesar, I really like him in his scoring too. Bad. Now, got a giveaway here. Get some bling, guess the score. So NRL Fantasy Championship rings. Got one on right now. That's how these look. Championship rings. There's a link in the description. I'm wearing in advance because I'm expecting to win the whole thing from rank 350. But no, I'm fading fast, man. But look, guess the score. We got Keanu Keeney this week. So drop a prediction for your guess on Keanu Keeney's score. If you get it right, if you're the first person to get it right, you win an NRL Fantasy Championship ring. If no one gets it right like last week, then we just carry it forward. So last week, no one guessed Sam Walker 30 points. A few said 29. A few said 31. No one said 30. This week, Keanu Keeney, big range of outcomes. Biz, I'm going to ask you first here. What is your guess for his score?
I'm still a salty Keeney owner from the start of the year where he did nothing. So I want to say 21 points this week. 21,
not the traditional 18 points that he was...
No, I give him some credit for improving as a player, but he's what, like 80, 35, 85, like the last 3 weeks. So I think he'll fall again. I think the Warriors will ice this one pretty easily, I think. 21 points.
I'm going to throw a 44 in. I think he scores a try on the 80th minute to bring the scores within 30.
Yeah, all right. Fair enough.
Like
let's see how
consolation special. Yeah. Just when we think he's finally done. But yeah, all right. Guess your scores anyway, guys, because you get a championship ring if you get it right first. So it's a good prize to get. And only the hardcores made it half an hour into the video to actually see this. So
that's true.
We love it. All right, center next. Now, this is a pretty exciting list. There's some guys here that have burned us before, and I think we have to hit the elephant in the room first. Burbo, 468k.
Crazy.
If you are not bitter and hateful like we are, would you be looking at Burbo with a fresh set of eyes and thinking, I could get that back rower who plays center?
Well, this year, you know what? Like, we've said it a few times. Like, every week on the podcast, we say the same thing. This is the year where, like, logic doesn't make sense. Like, players who have been trash in, like, historically have just somehow found new life. And Burbo could be that guy. I don't really understand it. I don't even want to try and understand it. But would I be bringing in Burbo? No. But now that I've said that, watch him be, like, better than Aitken for the run home.
I mean, back-to-back 50s, and he played center last week, right? Because Garrick was out for most of the game. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm with you. I can't do it. But if he's available on your draft waiver wire, go get him there, I guess. I couldn't bring myself to buy him for my real team. Jack Whiten's at a similar price point there, 426k. He's the guy. So I got him a fortnight ago. I was still getting clowned for a bit last week, actually, in the group chat. But he scored 30.
I got him as well, so yeah.
Yeah, mate, he scored 30 last week. And for me, I look at Jack White and I think, look, 25 to 30 points is what he scores when nothing happens.
Yeah.
And then you add like random attacking plays and he bumps up to a 40 average. That's sort of how I see it. Yeah. So in 2 weeks, it's what, 57 and 30, which equates like a 43.5 average. That's fine. At that price point with the buy schedule he has and the coverage at center and half, like I came into this week thinking Galvin might be out and not being worried about it because I have Whiten. So I'm cool with it. I think
I'm very cool with it. Yeah, no, 100%. He hasn't gone up in price recently. I think he's like the perfect type of guy to have on your bench for the run home. Just like I said, he covers 2 positions. Center's always a tough position to cover, and half as well. Like we've got a lot of half coverage this year, so maybe not as important. But he's a guy that I'm going to have for the rest of the year. He's not going to lose his spot in the team unless something drastic happens. And Souths are only actually getting better. Like they'll get Campbell Graham back soon, and that'll improve an edge. Cody Walker's playing better form. Latrell's real red hot last few weeks. I think Cook's playing well again. Murray's back.
Murray. So, hopefully Munro as well.
Exactly, yeah. Munro, like the Souths could make a big run home to end the year. So at 426k, I'm on, if nothing else, but for he plays 16 and 19, and he's a perfect depth option for the last positions in your team run home. So, yeah, if I needed someone on this list, I like Farnworth, I like Manu because they're both keepers, and then I like Wyden because I don't think RTS is a keeper, and neither is Burbo. They're at awkward prices.
Well, let's go into that top section then. So Herbie Farnworth, Joey Manu. It's probably a decision a lot of people are making right now. I'll throw a few things in here. So Herbie Farnworth, he's been in great form recently. Since I bought him, he's been the best. He's averaged like 65 points since I bought him like a month and a half ago. Yeah. I love it. It's great. Yeah, he's been awesome. He's got the round 16, 19 plays coming up. Joey Manu only plays round 16. And the form difference is big. So Joey Manu, since I bought him, has been an absolute slug. Like I've killed him. So I don't always get it right. But
you haven't killed him as much as I've killed Isaac Tunga.
Oh, well, Tungo's not even on this list, but he'll be on the cheapies section next week. 444k. Dude, disaster stuff. Remember he used to be 750k?
And like averaging like 50? I don't know. I can't.
He averaged 49 last year. 49 last year, 42 the year before.
This is a rant I'll save for next week, but God, I'm never buying a Panthers center again. Going from Taylor May to Isaac Tungo has just been... Ugh, brother. Ugh.
I'm eyeing him off. Isaac Tungo, he's a must-have for round 20.
Yeah, I think he'll be a great cash-out option, to be honest. A good depth, like he's like even better center depth than Wyden. So,
dude, just loopholing even, right? Yeah. Like just loopholing.
With Cleary back. Once Cleary's back and they're going his way again, he's a different beast. I kind of stupidly bought Tungo when Cleary was hurt, and I'm paying for it now. But
I can't blame you, man. Like I thought he would be better than this. I didn't think he'd be 50 average, but I thought he'd be solid enough.
Maybe 40s, so, low 40s.
Yeah. I've been eyeing him off. Like he's been on my watch list every week, and I'm just waiting for that game where he looks like himself again, gets the volume.
Yeah,
and it just hasn't happened. I've sort of felt the same with Taylor May when I was watching him. I never got on either, but I was just sort of waiting for that game where they got volume, and I thought, yeah, okay, cool, this is it turning around. This hasn't happened, so
I think
at least
Taylor
they've been
May.
enough.
Yeah, well, I think May would have been really good while Luai's pulling the strings over the last few weeks, whilst Cleary's been out. I think once Cleary comes back and they'll start favouring the right again, Tungo will be gangbusters. So he's definitely a good option.
Yeah, he's hot. So Farnworth, Joey Manu, which one do you prefer?
And
you can throw Aitken into this conversation as well. I didn't have him.
Aitken for sure. Like if you need a centre this week and Farnworth, Manu, Aitken, it's definitely Aitken. I think Farnworth is probably a better scorer slightly if they're both
Joey covers wing fullback though.
But Joey Manu covers wing fullback, and I think with trades running low and a lot of rounds still to go, I would favour that over a single position player. Because I'm just looking at my squad now, and I've been really lucky this week to have 13, and it's because of my flexibility through guys like Aitken, Wyden, Garrick.
Yeah.
He's out this week, but like Karaz still in my team. Salmon, like all these dual position players that are saving me so many headaches. So I value that a lot, especially towards the back end of the season. So I'd go Manu personally, but I think Farnworth might outscore him slightly, but not enough to offset the dual position, the 20K pocket.
Yeah, I think it's fair. The 16-19 thing sways me a little towards Farnworth, but we're already talking about, Jack. I've got Jack White and you have Jack White, and we're talking about getting Tungo. Most people, some have already gotten on. We're looking at these players. Kohler could any time now just remember that he can run the ball in a game of footy. That would be exciting if you did that. Frustrating, man. So frustrating.
I mean, I don't know what's worse, Tungo or Kohler.
Kohler. Kohler can be so good, man. Kohler at fullback.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. But yeah, RTS, I just threw him in here because we needed 5, and I reckon he tears up against the Titans. I'm just basically picking Warriors players to beat up on the Titans this week. I really think that it's going to be a one-sided game. So because I'm saying that, the Titans will probably win.
Yeah.
But I just reckon they're going to beat them up. Like, high-scoring game. It might be closer than the scoreline, but I think it's going to be sort of 30-plus points scored by the Warriors. And I think the big names are going to show out.
I'm going to actually ask you this question a lot because we've actually got a lot of good centers on this list. Who are the 2 centers you want to run home with?
I'm actually not getting on Aitken.
But you don't want to, is that because of the price, or you don't think he'll be the best center 10 yet?
It's the price. I don't think he's going to be far and away the best center. So I think he's going to be a guy who averages 50 points from here on out. I looked at him a few weeks ago, looked at him again last week. I got on Herbie as well. So there was a point a way back when I could get Herbie or Aitken, and I couldn't afford Aitken. I could afford Herbie. So I was sort of forced into this call. I look at it now and I just sort of go, you know what? I've got Farnworth. I've got in the back 3. So Joey Manu, Tedesco, Weeks. Then I've got a few other guys there as well. So I just sort of look at it and go, I could force it, but it's a bunch of cash where if I forecast for Tungo instead of Aitken in that final team, and I don't need the players this week, like if I needed the players, it might be different, then it makes it a lot easier for me to go get Nico Hines next week, and it makes it a lot easier for me to go get Nathan Cleary down the stretch. So that's kind of what I'm prioritizing over these extra guys.
So you're happy to run Farnworth and Manu till the end of the year? I mean, I would be too. I think they're tier 1s. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think they're fine. I think Aitken could fade. I think also, and it's an underrated thing, but it's not a massive likelihood to hurt him. But Aitken is leaving the Dolphins at the end of the year. He's leaving with the coach, right? So it's not causing any bad blood. But if I'm the Dolphins and things start going a bit sour down the stretch, they probably won't. They're looking pretty good. But I would probably start thinking about either resting guys like Aitken for the finals, who's a veteran player, a little bit, or I'd be thinking about the future a bit and going, who's going to be that starting back rower next year? Let's make sure we give them some minutes too. The downside of that case is that it's Finafuyaki, who's not there right now. So it's probably not likely to impact him, but I'm just going to raise it as a reach for me justifying this call.
Yeah, I mean, I get that because the Dolphins actually have a lot of edges. On the flip side, all their edges are old, like Kenny Bromwich, Kafusi. But like Oren Keeley, he's the young one, so that he could be a guy. Like Connolly, obviously on one edge.
What about Tavita Pangai Jr.?
Yeah, true. Looking to that's it. Honestly, that's
15 minutes on the edge.
What's he priced at? I haven't actually looked at it.
500k. He's not on this. He's not. We're not including him at all. Gross.
Yeah.
Nah.
Yeah. If he was like 350 or something, could be interesting because he can score. But yeah.
I don't even think so, man. Like he's just coming back from a hamstring injury.
Yeah. No, I agree. And he's probably I'm not on him. But I think coming back to that conversation, so I think you're happy with any of Aitken, Farnworth, Joey Manu, and then probably on top of that, who aren't playing this week, Lomax or Gagai. They're probably the five. You'd want two of those five to end the season with for sure.
Yeah. I think I'm happy enough with those moves. You want to pick a team that's not going to completely fall off the boiler down the stretch as well.
Yep.
So Farnworth and Manu, Dolphins and Roosters are looking pretty good down the stretch. I'd be a little, I don't know, Gagai scores well regardless of situation.
Ponga will come back as well. So
yeah, and he doesn't care. Like they could lose by 50 and he just goes and runs 4,000 meters and breaks every tackle. Like
Lomax, Dragons are in the hunt for the 8. So he's been their best player, so he'll probably still play well, even though he's going to Parramatta. Thank God he's coming.
Yeah. The other thing with Aitken too is you said it a few weeks ago that he's at the same price as like Payne Haas, and I just can't shake that thought.
And then I went and got Aitken like a fool. Yeah,
I want to get Payne Haas.
Yeah, getting these guys in. I still have to go get Haas. I still have to go get Cleary. So it's gonna be tricky. Salmon better get his price up, baby. Let's go, Jamin. Come on,
Jamin. Yeah, we had a prediction thing earlier. One guy guessed 102 points for Jamin Salmon. So everyone else said 25 to 40. But
okay, let's see how it goes. Might need 6 tries or something.
He'd need more than 6. Wing a fullback next, and this position's pretty spoiled actually. So pretty good spot. And I'm going to go into the captain's game for this week and pick our captains for this week too. So for wing fullback, I think it's a pretty clean list here. James Tedesco is that top option. He's the creme de la creme at this position. Not at an absurd price point for how he's playing. Then you got CNK, Pappenhausen, and Jaden Campbell sitting in a bit of a bracket there. And then Jordan Rapana is a bit of a cheaper option as well. I'll throw it to you first here. If you had none of these guys and you were sort of looking at this list, I know you, so you're probably going to say James Tedesco is the keeper and you want to get him because you want your final roster set up. Let's say you didn't have that money. You had 630K. What are you doing here?
I mean, I don't think Tedesco is a keeper this year.
Ooh.
I've got him, but I mean, I'll answer your question first. I like Campbell and Pappenhausen. Pappenhausen is because I think Storm are really in hot form, and he could rack up some big scores. On the flip side, like the reason I'm saying Pappenhausen is because most people are probably thinking about his injury history, but I just said Jaden Campbell, whose injury history this year or last year has just been just as bad. Campbell has looked really good at 6, but traditionally he hasn't scored that well there, and Titans are just a bit as well. I don't know if he'll get moved back to fullback. I don't know where Brimson's going to play. So, like when Brimson comes back, who's gone? Is it Keeney, and then who's going to fullback? Is it Brimson or Campbell? Probably Brimson back to fullback because he was playing well there before he got injured, but then he was also okay at 6. Yeah. So I'm probably going but then Campbell plays 19. Actually, I'll go Jaden Campbell myself, and then hopefully ride his current because he had 2 big scores, so low break even. Hopefully ride him 700K, and then I think the keepers at the position are Latrell, Dylan Edwards, and then probably Ponga when he returns in round 20. So. I actually think Tedesco is a tier below that this year. So I think Tedesco, Reece Walsh are those guys who are tier 2s. I think Latrell and Edwards are like your 60 average guys this year, and Ponga is probably 55 to 60 if he comes back at full health. So I actually don't think I'd go Tedesco here. I think I'd go Jay Campbell just because I'd pocket that 150K and upgrade him towards the back end of the buys.
Yeah, that round 16, 19 is red hot. Where does Mike Acevo factor into that? Because you didn't mention him in tier 1.
Yeah, I mean, he was just beyond that. He's tier God 0, you know, like it's just
okay. And then Tommy Talau.
I mean, he's the flagship. Well, I don't need to mention him. He's like the his head is there. He's literally the casual athlete is Tommy Talau, man.
I love it.
It's not you, man. It's Tommy.
Tommy's the guy.
Yeah.
All right, I like that. I'm going to talk a bit on these guys too here because Tedesco, I reckon he's close enough to being a keeper with how Latrell goes in terms of injuries normally and that kind of thing. I think Latrell will normalize his scores a bit more and he'll float back down to mid-50s. I think Teddy, with how the Roosters are, is going to have some big games in there. It's going to bounce him up. So I think they're even enough in my mind. Pappenhausen, he just wasn't producing the upside. The injuries are taking their toll a bit in terms of the way he's running the ball. Like, he's just not running like a psycho the way he used to. And that used to produce a lot of tackle breaks where he'd sprint at the line at full speed and just pop through. Yeah. A lot of the time. He's not doing that as much.
He needs the goals as well, right? Like the goals would take him to a 50-plus average if he...
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Jaden Campbell, yeah, like that. Might get that dual position as well, which helps. Rapana, I'm going to talk about here for a sec because Rapana's last two scores are 42 and a 60. He's got the Tigers this week. Heaney scored 85 points against the Tigers last week. Rapana has scored, I think, like 100 points against the Tigers.
He's got 100 plus. Well. Yeah, he's got a couple hundred, I think,
Yeah, there we go. So I look at him, and it's probably a good segue into what we're doing next. Pick your captain for this week. And that's probably a bit of a spoiler that I'm going to take Rapana. So last week we had a run. I took Dom Young, and you took Sam Walker. I saw Dom Young was out, and I subbed mine for Brian To'o.
Yeah,
I know, crafty move. I didn't have many players to pick from at the end of the week, but so yeah, To'o got me a 66. Sam Walker, as much as the Roosters scored plenty of points, so you picked the right narrative. He just wasn't the guy. Kiri scored a lot more. So I've taken an early lead, which is well deserved, I think, at this stage, even with my late sub. You meant to fight back on that, otherwise it's look like
I mean, I'm just thinking really thoroughly on who I want this week. Is it sub 600 or sub 700?
Sub 700.
Okay, I'm going Terrell May this week.
Terrell May. That's a solid option. That's a really nice, solid option. He should be good.
Yeah, I mean, I had him in my one of my other teams, and he got 95 when I captained him in round 13. So I want to back him again. He played like 75 minutes or 80 minutes, and he's like one of the highest PPM in fantasy. So if he's getting big minutes, he should be heap solid. So yeah, I'm going on Terrell May.
All right, Terrell May. Yeah. I rate it. I'm taking Jordan Rapana, and I've got a lead, so I want to do something crazy. I want to extend that lead.
Yeah,
I reckon he is. There's like a 20% chance he's the best scorer this week in my mind. I've just got this feeling. I had a dream. You know, he was in it. The Rapana boat was in full swing. Like, yeah,
I don't mind it. I mean, yeah, he's a who definitely knows how to explode. So, yeah, it definitely could happen.
All right, so we got Rapana and you got Terrell May. Mate, two players that have disappointed me this year in fantasy. Coming back to do his job.
I mean, Terrell, he was disappointing after, but he gave us some good memories to start the season for sure.
Yeah, fair play. All right, some good shouts, guys. Let us know who you would pick as well. So sub 700K is the big thing. Your top captain of this week at that price point. Let us know who you got, and we'll keep an eye on that too. Anyway, that is buy, hold, sell for this week. So a bit of a different segment. Is there anything else you want to throw in here? Anyone you'd want to talk about, or any advice for this week, Biz?
I've already recorded for about an hour. I've got not much more to say. That's pretty. So no, I think this is hopefully a round where I'll make some ground with 13 players. I feel like we've been saying that for a few weeks now, and I just keep slowly pushing back. Yep. So trying to catch Longy, but otherwise, everyone, good luck, and we'll see you next week.
Easy. Catch you guys then. Remember, you're a month away from 8 more trades too. So chins up.